You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning, it's August the 31st, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News, found here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. Good morning, Glenn. How you doing?
I'm doing absolutely great. Looks like it's a nice sunny day where you are.
Well, yeah, it is actually.
that's what I can see the
and
sun
we got
on the
blue sky. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, there we go. I got a duck. so
it could be worse.
It won't shine on my eyes, but I got a light in front of me too to give me some light. What's that?
I said it could be worse. Could be clouds.
Okay. Well, what do you say we get on with the news?
Sounds good to me.
I think we got some lag going on. All right. Sounds good to you. Okay. First story of the day. Here we go. U.S. Health Department recommends looser restrictions on cannabis.
The drug is still illegal at the federal level, despite 40 of 50 U.S. states having passed laws legalizing its use in some form. Cannabis is currently listed in the same class as drugs as heroin and LSD.
If the DEA changes its classification, it could mark the most significant shift in U.S. drug policy in decades. Cannabis is currently classified as a Schedule I drug under the Controlled Substances Act, meaning it has no medical use and a high chance of abuse.
No medical use after all these years, eh? The change to Schedule 3 would align it with drugs listed as having low potential for dependency and abuse. Ketamine, codeine, anabolic steroids fall under that classification. Last year, President Joe Biden asked his Attorney General and Health Secretary to oversee a review on whether cannabis should be listed as a less serious drug.
The proposal was presented to the DEA by the Department of Health and Human Services on Tuesday. As part of this process, HHS conducted a scientific and medical evaluation for consideration by the DEA, the agency said in a statement.
The DEA has the final authority to schedule or reschedule a drug under the Controlled Substances Act. DEA will now initiate its review. HHS, in its statement, said, this administrative process was completed in less than 11 months, reflecting this department's collaboration and leadership to ensure that a comprehensive scientific evaluation be completed and shared expeditiously.
The recommendation stops short of removing cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act list altogether. Some advocates have pushed the administration to deschedule cannabis, meaning repeal it from the Controlled Substances Act and regulate it in the same way as alcohol or tobacco. Rescheduling it could open it up to further research and allow banking in the cannabis industry to operate more freely. Currently, most cannabis businesses in the U.S. are forced to operate in cash due to the tax laws banning banks from handling money generated from certain drug sales.
And public opinion polling indicates that a majority of cannabis is and in 38 more states.
There you go. So they're going to change that.
They've been talking about it for a long time. I'm glad there's something happening with it.
Well, let's see what happens. No guarantees, as they say. We've been waiting for a long time down there for them to make changes.
We've heard this before.
We have. We sure have. All right. On to our next story. Headline there for Marijuana Moment says lawmakers, governor, and advocates share mixed reactions to the federal marijuana rescheduling recommendation from the top health agency.
News that the top U.S. health agency is formally recommending the moving of marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 under federal law has ignited a firestorm of commentary from top officials, including the government of Colorado, congressional lawmakers, and national advocacy groups. The letter that leaked on Wednesday revealed that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has completed its scientific review into cannabis is now advising the Drug Enforcement Administration to significantly loosen restrictions under the Controlled Substances Act.
The recommendation is being met with mixed reactions, while many are encouraged that the HHS is proposing reform that would have major implications for cannabis research, while also giving cannabis businesses the ability to make federal tax deductions. Others say Schedule 3 does not go far enough, as cannabis would remain federally illegal and could even have negative implications. Both HHS and DEA have confirmed to the Marijuana Moment that the letter was sent and received. But while there is significant excitement about the development, nothing is final about the scheduling decision. DEA said it will now initiate its review, taking into account FDA's findings, but it makes the final call and isn't required to follow through on a Schedule 3 reclassification.
Of course, it's not required. I don't think it should be scheduled in 3 at all. I think it should be completely removed.
Right.
But I guess it is a step forward. In any case, advocates, stakeholders, and officials from across the country are sharing their perspectives. Here's what some of them are saying. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who's a Democrat from New York. HHS has done the right thing, and DEA should now quickly follow through on this important step to greatly reduce the harms caused by draconian marijuana laws, Schumer said. While this is a step forward, there is still much more that needs to be done legislatively to end the federal prohibition on cannabis and roll back the war on drugs. I'm committed to continuing to work in Congress to pass important cannabis legislation and criminal justice reform.
Senate Finance Committee Chairman Ron Wyden, he says, ultimately, I believe that cannabis should be descheduled with strong federal regulations put in place to protect public health and safety. That's why I introduced the Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act with Leader Schumer and Senator Booker. However, the recommendation of HHS to reschedule cannabis as a Schedule 3 drug is not inconsequential. If HHS's recommendation is ultimately implemented, it will be a historic step for a nation whose cannabis policies have been out of touch with reality. At long last, barriers to much-needed research will be lifted, and inequitable 280E tax provisions thrown in the trash can so that state legal cannabis businesses will no longer be treated like criminals and can deduct their business expenses just like any other small business.
I think it's still federally illegal, so I don't know how that's going to affect the banking at all.
Yeah.
You know, I can't see MasterCard saying, hey, use our cards, they're still illegal.
No, they're not. No, exactly. Not until it changes federally.
Yeah. Progress cannot stop here, he added. The administration and my colleagues in Congress must do more to bring America's cannabis policy into the 21st century, catch up with the states, and help undo the decades of harm caused by the failed war on drugs. Senator James Lankford, who's a Republican from Oklahoma. Oklahoma has seen an alarming growth in illegal grow operations, foreign land purchases by China and others. What that has to do with it, I have no idea. And related criminal activity, including execution-style murder. The GOP senator said, more cannabis is not good for our families, our businesses, or our communities. One of the most short-sighted things I've ever heard anybody say.
Yeah. Earl Blumauer, he says, this is a step in the right direction, but it is not sufficient. He goes on to say, I hope it is followed by more significant reforms. This is long overdue. Rep. Matt Gaetz says the congressman celebrated the news by posting a video of himself pressing the head of a DEA on cannabis rescheduling at a hearing last month.
First time I've ever agreed with Matt Gaetz.
Yeah.
Representative Dwight Evans, who's a Democrat from Pennsylvania, as a longtime supporter of legalizing cannabis, I also support the more limited step of reclassifying to Schedule 3, the congressman said. This is just common sense, and the federal government absolutely should do it.
Now, state officials, Governor General, or Colorado's Governor Jared Polis says that he is thrilled the Biden administration is moving forward with this common sense decision to reschedule cannabis. Coloradans are watching, and we urge the federal government not to delay the process further as other agencies begin their review. One thing is certain: Schedule 3 removes the 280E. They said, referencing a federal law that prohibits people from taking federal tax deductions if their income is derived by a Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 drug. This continues to be one of the largest barriers in Colorado's thriving cannabis industry faces, and we look forward to seeing the demise of this archaic tax penalty leveled against state-regulated businesses.
And the advocacy groups, first off is NORML, Deputy Director Paul Armitano. The goal of federal cannabis policy reform ought to be to address the existing untenable chasm between federal cannabis policy and the cannabis laws of the majority of the U.S. states, Armitano told Marijuana Moment on Wednesday. Rescheduling the cannabis plant to Schedule 3 of the U.S. Controlled Substances Act fails to adequately address this conflict, as existing state legislation laws, both adult use and medical, will continue to be in conflict with federal regulations, thereby perpetuating the existing divide between state and federal cannabis policies, he said. Absolutely perfect. Spot on.
Pullback founder Justin Struckle says that Schedule 3 maintains the federal criminalization of marijuana possession, even for those participating in state-level medical marijuana programs. He told Marijuana Moment, should the Biden administration move forward with this, it is not fulfilling their campaign promise to decriminalize.
True. The U.S. Cannabis Council enthusiastically welcomes today's news. President Biden and his administration recognize that cannabis was wrongfully classified as a Schedule 1 controlled substance, and they are delivering on their promise to change it, Conklin said. We believe that rescheduling to Schedule 3 will mark the most significant federal cannabis reform in modern history. President Biden is effectively declaring an end to Nixon's failed war on cannabis and placing the nation on a trajectory to end prohibition. Rescheduling will have a broad range of benefits, including signaling to the criminal justice system that cannabis is a lower priority and providing a crucial economic lifeline to the cannabis industry by lifting the 280E tax burden. State licensed cannabis businesses of all shapes and sizes will benefit from this historic reform, he said. We urge the DEA to proceed with rescheduling cannabis with all reasonable speed.
The Marijuana Policy Project Director of State Policies, Karen O'Keefe, says, we are encouraged by the Department of Health and Human Services for more sensible and realistic scheduling for cannabis. Given that over half the U.S. population lives in medical cannabis states and millions of Americans are finding relief with cannabis products, it is long past due for the federal government to acknowledge the cannabis medical value. Here. Unfortunately, moving cannabis to Schedule 3 will still leave many of the harms of federal prohibition in place. However, today's news is a step in the right direction and will deliver real benefits, including facilitating increased research and reducing burdens on medical cannabis patients and the businesses that serve them.
While we recognize that a shift to Schedule 3 would be significant in a number of ways, Packer told Marijuana Moment, noting how the reform would remove research barriers and allow cannabis businesses to make normal business deductions. However, she said that the rescheduling action would fall woefully short of the promises made by President Biden during his 2020 presidential election campaign, especially promises made to Black and Brown communities.
It does not address the underlying criminalization of cannabis, even just for personal use and possession, which President Biden has already acknowledged as a failure that disproportionately impacts Black and Latino communities. If the Biden administration is seriously committed to ending this country's failed approach of marijuana and righting the wrongs of cannabis criminalization, including addressing this proportionate impacts of criminalization on Black and Latino communities, Biden should support decriminalization and a new approach to federal cannabis policy that actually promotes fairness and justice.
National Cannabis Industry Association CEO Aaron Smith. Moving cannabis to Schedule 3 would have some limited benefit, but does nothing to align federal law with the 38 U.S. states, which have already effectively regulated cannabis for medical or adult use, Smith said. The only way to fully resolve the myriad of issues stemming from the federal conflict with state law is to remove cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act and regulate the product in a manner similar to alcohol. The vast majority of Americans live in states with laws that depart from federal law on this issue, where thousands of regulated Main Street businesses are serving the legal cannabis market safely and responsibly, he said. It's long past time for Congress to truly harmonize federal policy with those states.
Now, the National Cannabis Roundtable Executive Director, Sophia Gallup, says that for half a century, cannabis has been imperfectly classified with no real scientific basis to the detriment of patients and those prosecuted under the misguided drug war. With the conclusion of a scientific review by HSS, this historic recommendation to lessen federal restrictions on cannabis and affirming that cannabis has medical value is a major win for patients and should help undo decades of misguided drug policy. This recommendation by HHS is just the first part of the scheduling news review process started under the direction of President Biden last fall, as it remains just as urgent and critical for congressional action on safe banking and other cannabis policy reforms on the federal level, she says, referencing legislation to protect banks that works with the state licensed cannabis businesses from being penalized by federal regulators.
And we look forward to the DEA and the Department of Justice determination on this recommendation, and hope that those agencies will consider additional aspects of criminal justice reform in their decision, which lay outside the jurisdiction of the FDA and HHS, Gallup said. NCR remains committed to working with federal agencies and Congress to move much needed cannabis reforms forward and protect consumers, address social justice, and promote economic alternatives. The Minority Cannabis Business Association, Calico Castile. Moving cannabis to Schedule 3 simply rebrands prohibition. It doesn't end it. Although this decision would lead to much needed tax relief for some cannabis businesses, it would do nothing to remove criminal penalties that still continue to disproportionately impact minority communities, Castile said. We urge President Biden to make good on his promise to end arrests for cannabis and fully remove cannabis from the CSA. This is the only way to ensure equity, social justice, and economic opportunities in the cannabis industry.
Yeah, exactly. Now, from some prohibitionists, we're going to hear on that. And that is start off with smart approaches to marijuana, which is the SAM, and the president is Kevin Sabat. He says, well, under HSS recommendation, marijuana would still remain illegal under federal laws. The move flies in the face of science, reeks of politics, and would allow the industry to deduct business promotion and other expenses like ads promoting kid-friendly THC-flavored gummies and candies by repealing Section 280 of the tax code. So that says the addiction profiteers who have been exposed for lying about marijuana's physical and mental and economic impacts are desperately looking for legitimacy in the wake of mounting evidence that products are harming millions of Americans. It is regrettable that the Department of Health and Services now moves appears to be to give them a nod for those interested. Yeah, I don't know if you know of Kevin Sabat and Sam. Smart approaches for marijuana.
I do now.
But yeah. The news of the HSS recommendation comes 2 months after Secretary Xavier Becerra told Marijuana Moment that his agency was aiming to wrap up the review by the end of the year.
That's good. Okay. White House spokesman told Marijuana Moment on Wednesday that the administration process is an independent process led by HHS and Department of Justice and guided by evidence. So President's team will not be commenting on the agency's recommendation at this time. Politically moving cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 will allow the president to say that he's helped accomplish a major reform facilitating an administrative review that may result in rescheduling more than 50 years of cannabis or after cannabis was placed in the most restrictive category as the federal government launched a war on drugs.
This could also bolster momentum for congressional efforts to further reform federal cannabis laws as lawmakers come back from the August recess and continue to try to pass cannabis banking legislation. They will be able to point to the HHS recommendation as evidence of the urgency to normalize the industry. Of course, advocates' highest hopes for the HHS review was that it would lead to a descheduling recommendation where marijuana would be completely removed from the CSA and treated the same as alcohol in the eyes of the government. Some have also voiced concerns that a Schedule III reclassification could negatively impact state markets, with FDA potentially assuming a more hands-on role with respect to cannabis. Meanwhile, last week, Matt Gaetz pressed DEA Administrator Ann Milligan to expand on her recent remarks about the origin and timeline of the President's Marijuana Scheduling Review Directive. Specifically, he's asked for a copy of the letter that Milgram says that the President sent to the Attorney General and HHS Secretary last year directing the review. He also wants an update on whether the administration asked HHS about the timetable for their work, as she told him she'd be doing during a recent House Judiciary subcommittee hearing.
As far as the alleged rescheduling letter from Biden is concerned, an attorney filed a Freedom of Information Act request with HHS in an effort to obtain a copy of the letter, but earlier this month, the department said it had no records of such a document. Wow. That's it.
There you go. There you go. So where's the letter? People are asking, where's that letter?
It's missing.
It's missing.
I wonder if that guy from Sam has it.
Maybe, exactly. That's a possibility. All right, next. Access to cannabis stores varies widely across U.S. and Canada.
Access to recreational cannabis stores across the United States and Canada differs greatly by state and province after taking population into account. Different state-by-state regulations have created some markets that offer far fewer retail choices for consumers.
Consider two states with approximately the same population, Rhode Island and Montana. Both states have about 1.1 million people. Rhode Island, however, has only one adult-use retail cannabis store per 100,000 residents based on the March data.
By contrast, the cannabis consumers in Montana have 37 recreational stores to shop from per 100,000 residents. There is a difference, though, here. Montana is a huge state, and Rhode Island is a tiny, tiny, tiny state. So it's not a direct comparison this way. The data comes from the annual state-by-state survey analysis.
They're going by people.
Yeah, they're going by people, but it's kind of a weird way because Rhode Island is a little tiny, tiny place. I know they have the same amount as Montana, but Montana should have more because of the area covered. You know, you don't want someone to have to drive 3 hours.
Oh, they have more land mass.
Yeah. But definitely Rhode Island still needs more. The data comes from the state-by-state survey and analysis published in the 2023 MJ Biz Fact Book.
The population-based analysis sheds fresh light on retail availability or density across the country. So while California might have more than 1,000 recreational cannabis stores sprinkled throughout, it also has the country's largest population with roughly 39 million people.
As a result,
Californians have only 3 adult-use stores to shop from per.
Wow.
Go ahead.
I'm surprised. I thought California had more than that.
Well, I guess in Canada we're looking at twice that many with about the same amount of people.
There's a great graph here that shows you Canada and the States. Canadian adult use cannabis stores density doesn't reach Montana levels, but as U.S. states' retail density varies widely by province, according to MJ Biz Daily Canadian Retail Tracker, the country has about 3,800 recreational stores as of August, which translates into approximately 10 stores per 100,000 residents.
Alberta might not have the most stores in Canada. That honor goes to the most populous province, Ontario, which is roughly 15.5 million people. Yet Alberta, with about 4.7 million people, consistently has the highest number per capita, with 21 per 100,000 residents. By contrast, Quebec has almost double the population of Alberta, but it has the fewest stores per capita of any Canadian province, with only one store per 100,000 people.
Looking ahead, Quebec's government-owned recreational cannabis retail monopoly, Société Québécoise du Cannabis, appears to have limited plans to open new outlets over the next several years. It's hard to know what the perfect density for retail cannabis is, making it harder for store owners trying to find a sustainable business model going forward. And with too few retailers, customers' needs are not met. With too many retailers, a glut ensues and causes store failures.
A recent study of Canadian stores shows that proximity might be a key to that equation. The research found that people who lived less than about 1.9 miles from the closest regulated cannabis retailer were more likely to source cannabis from a legal store. Experts agree that the cannabis retailer should take into account store location and density during their planning. There we go. Done. All right. Last story before we go to the break. And this one comes to us from High Times. And the headline on it says that survey 1/3 of those under 50 open to psychedelic mental health treatments.
Appears to be, according to findings from a new survey. The poll from YouGov found that a significant percentage, 24, 9 psilocybin and other currently illegal substances like ketamine, MDMA, and DMT for treating mental health conditions.
The Outlook noted that YouGov poll was commissioned by a London-based clinical trial startup called Lindus Health, which has proclaimed mission to use software to help innovative companies run faster, more reliable, and patient-friendly clinical trials. Aside from psilocybin, those aged between 18 and 24 were most interested in trialing ketamine, and for 25 to 49-year-olds, the next highest was MDMA. Psychedelic Spotlight reported. Interesting, psilocybin came out on top of all age groups, including 54 to 60-year-olds and those aged above 65.
The survey's findings are yet more evidence of a growing acceptance of psychedelic treatment options. A poll in June from the University of California, Berkeley Center for the Science of Psychedelics revealed that a solid majority of Americans support the idea of providing access to psychedelic therapies.
More than 6 out of 10 American registered voters supported legalizing regulated therapeutic access to psychedelics, including 35% who report strong support. The pollsters wrote in their analysis. In addition, more than 1/3, or more than 3/4 of voters support making it easier for researchers to study psychedelic substances. Almost half support removing criminal penalties for personal use and possession.
Imran Khan, the executive director of U.S. Berkeley Center for the Science of Psychedelics, said that the survey's findings represented the first clear picture we have what American public thinks and feel about psychedelics. The Berkeley Psychedelics Survey shows that the majority of American voters are interested in and supportive of the field. They want fewer barriers to research for scientists, and they want regulated therapeutic access for the public. Khan said, amidst all the stigma and the hype about these powerful substances, it's vital that researchers, policymakers, and practitioners can understand and respond to the public's hopes and fears We're excited to reveal the full results of the Berkeley Psychedelics Survey in the coming weeks.
Berkeley, California has proven to be the epicenter for psychedelic reform. Earlier this summer, city officials, they approved a measure to decriminalize both psilocybin mushrooms and ayahuasca. The widening acceptance of psychedelic drugs has led to a flowering of research, particularly in their potential as an effective treatment for mental health.
A recent study explored how psychedelics activate the default mode network of the brain, defined as a system of connected brain areas that show increased activity when a person is not focused on what is happening around them. The DNM is especially active, research shows, when one engages in introspective activities such as daydreaming, contemplating the past or the future, or thinking about the perspective of another person. Unfettered daydreaming can often lead to creativity. The default mode network is also active when a person is awake. However, in a resting state, when a person is not engaged in any demanding, externally oriented mental tasks, the mind shifts into default. The publication Psychology Today said in a report on the study.
A study in May found that microdosing could increase state authenticity through influencing people's mood and satisfaction with daily activities. I'm not going to finish off the story here, Glenn, because we're getting a little long on the time there. But good to see that people are open.
It seems like a vast majority of people.
So, well, what do you say? Break time?
Break time.
All right. See you on this other side, and it's time for us to help. I'll get this out right. It's time to hear from those who help us to inform our viewers. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News, found here at paceradio.net and CBG TV.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor? If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Canatechs about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Hey, we're back from a medication session, and we're live here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. And I've noticed we've had some lagging going on, but I think I figured out why. But unfortunately, I can't do anything about it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, but we'll get it straightened around. All right, next story. According to Yahoo News, 1/5 of cannabis users have dependency or problematic use, according to research.
Around 1/5 of cannabis users have a dependency or problematic use, according to a new study. The study, published Tuesday by the JAMA Network Open Medical Journal, surveyed primary care patients who are legal cannabis users in Washington state. It found 21% of participants have cannabis use disorder, or CUD, while 6% have moderate to severe CUD.
According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, signs of CUD include trying to, but failing to quit cannabis use, using more marijuana than intended for, or for long periods, and continuing cannabis use despite problems at home, school, or work. Patients who use cannabis for any non-medical use were at a greater risk of moderate to severe CUD, according to the study. It found 7.2% of non-medical cannabis users had CUD, compared to 1.3% of medical use only. Patients who were mostly older participants who reported using cannabis for both medical and non-medical reasons had the highest risk of moderate to severe CUD, with 7.5%.
Couldn't they get a better short form? Compared to medical use only patients, participants who used the drug for any non-medicinal use were also more likely to report withdrawal, use in hazardous situations, continue to use despite consequences, and interference with obligations and activities they gave up. The finding that CUD was common among primary care patients in a state with legal recreational use, where more than 20% of the population reports cannabis use, underscores the importance of assessing patient cannabis use in clinical settings, the study's authors note.
Washington was one of the first states to legalize recreational use back in 2012. The study was conducted at an integrated health system in Washington and surveyed 5,000 of 108,960 adult patients who completed routine cannabis screening from March 2019 to September 2019. Among 1,688 respondents, the 1,463 participants who reported cannabis use in the past 30 days were included in the study.
So we're finding out about CUD.
Yeah, cannabis use disorder. Now, I haven't tried to quit in the last 20 years, so I don't know whether I could quit, but I know that when I was hospitalized last, I didn't go through any issues.
I know that I went to Costa Rica in December, and I did not use at all for over 30 days. I never had a problem, it was nothing, and I've been a long time user.
Yeah. All right, next story. This one's a tongue twister, believe me. All right, first up, it says Psychedelic Spotlight is who it's from. It says PSILOCYBIN V ESCITALOPRAM study compares effects on depression. Now, obviously, I got that one word big time wrong.
It's gonna, maybe I'll pronounce it 3 different ways during this story, but we'll try it. Researchers
maybe I'll pick one.
Researchers probe treating one of the greatest psychological issues of our time with 2 different drugs. How does psilocybin, a psychedelic that remains illegal in the vast majority of the United States, stack up against frequently prescribed SSI, ESCITALOPRAM, to treat depression? Wow. According to the results, sorry, go ahead, Al.
According to the results of the study published by the Cambridge University press this past June pretty well, but not so well that the hallucinogen proved to be that superior. Psilocybin treatment was observed to produce a more robust antidepressant response involving decrease in neuroticism, introversion, disagreeableness, and impulsivity compared to decreases in neuroticism, disagreeableness and impulsivity related to ESCITALOPRAM, the study authors concluded. However, no formal differences in the magnitude of response was detected between the therapies.
Wow, you did pretty good there, Al. There was a lot of words in that one. 59 patients with diagnosis of moderate to severe major depression participated in the phase 2 double-blind, randomized, active comparator controlled trial, with which grouped 30 individuals into the psilocybin treatment and 29 into the ESCITALOPRAM treatment, studying the changes in personality relative to each treatment, both of which were paired with additional psychological support, including psychoeducation, therapeutic alliance building, and a form of acceptance and commitment therapy. To keep the study blind, however, both groups still received psilocybin, and with the PT receiving 25-gram dose of Compass Pathways, which is Comp 360, and the ET group receiving 1 milligram of psilocybin during their first dosage day. Neither patients nor staff administering the medicine were aware of what doses they would receive. Then, after any psychedelic effects subsided, researchers measured the participants' acute experience.
After the initial dosage day, PT patients were sent home with placebo capsules and instructed to take one each day for 3 weeks until the next dosage visit. ET group received capsules containing 10 milligrams of escitalopram and instructed to take one each day as well. That cycle was completed one more time for a total period of 6 weeks. 6 months later, patients were emailed survey results with additional self-report questionnaires. Ultimately, the researchers concluded personality changes across both conditions were in direct consistent with improved mental health. With the possible exception of trait absorption, there was no compelling between condition differences warranting conclusions regarding a selective action of PT versus ET on personality.
However, a research paper published a month earlier in the Journal of Affective Disorders analyzed data from the same study and came to a highly different conclusion. With psilocybin therapy, but not escitalopram, improvements in mental health outcomes, well-being, depression, severity, suicidal ideation, and trait anxiety occurred via reductions in experimental avoidance, authors wrote.
Experimental avoidance is a psychological term referring to a patient's unwillingness to remain in contact with aversive experience such as painful feelings, thoughts, and emotions. According to the National Institutes of Health, EA is often associated with development and maintenance of emotional problems. In other words, psilocybin enabled patients to feel more comfortable facing the problems that could be the root cause of their depression, giving researchers another clue with it may be more effective in the long run.
And these results provide support for the role of reduced experiential avoidance as a putative mechanism underlying psilocybin's therapy's positive therapeutic outcomes, authors concluded. The present findings may help to tailor, refine, and optimize psilocybin therapy and its delivery.
There you go. That was a tough word.
There was lots of words.
It was at least equal.
Yeah,
overall.
I was
and
kind of,
and there was some part that was better.
But then when the other group analyzed the same set of data, they came to the conclusion that psilocybin was better in the long term. So I guess it still remains to be seen.
Yeah. So remains to be seen. Like you say, more work, as they always say.
Yeah.
All right, on to the next story. This one comes to us from Mugglehead Magazine. CBD injections help reduce osteoarthritis pain in dogs.
The positive results are highly encouraging, and the dogs exhibiting a substantial drop in pain levels and an uptick inactivity. A new study showed that a single shot of liposomol, which is CBD, can relieve pain in dogs suffering from osteoarthritis for up to 6 weeks.
The study was published in the Frontiers in Veterinary Science, sponsored by the multinational Innocan Pharma Corporation. It has shown that a single continuous injection of liposomol CBD can significantly reduce pain and improve the well-being of dogs affected by osteoarthritis for up to 6 weeks. And talking about dogs, Glenn,
I can hear it. He's interested in the story. Okay. The term liposomel refers to drug delivery system that uses liposomes, which are tiny spherical vessels made up of one or more phospholipid bilayers. The study involves 6 dogs suffering from naturally occurring osteoarthritis that were unresponsive to conventional medications. The dogs were treated with a single injection of 5 milligrams liposomol CBD in addition to their routine medications. The research team then observed the dogs for 6 weeks, measuring various parameters such as CBD, plasma concentrations, blood work, collar activity data, and evaluations of well-being and pain. The results were highly encouraging, with the dogs exhibiting a substantial drop in pain levels and an uptick in activity. One of the key findings of the study was the prolonged detection of CBD in plasma. One of
the key findings of the study was prolonged detection. Yeah, okay, I'm here. Where was I now? One of the key findings of the study was prolonged detection of CBD in the plasma with a peak concentration of 45.2 nanograms per milliliter. This suggests that the liposomal formulation of CBD has long-lasting effect, potentially revitalizing the way veterinarians manage osteoarthritis in dogs. Another significant outcome was the increase in activity levels objectively measured by the 5th and 6th week following injection. This is particularly noteworthy as increased activity is often a reliable indicator of reduced pain and improved quality of life in animals.
Definitely is. While the study did note minor swelling at the injection site in 5 out of the 6 dogs, the side effect resolved within a few days without any treatment, indicating normal safety concerns. Innocan Pharma CEO Chris Binkovich said that the results covered by one of the world's leading publications stand as a testament to the potential of its innovative formulations and drug delivery systems.
With the drug's plasma concentration detectable for 6 weeks and high exposure in terms of AUC, the research suggests that this liposomol formulation could become a useful addition to pain management strategies for improving the quality of life in dogs with osteoarthritis. Innocan Pharma is also exploring other applications for their CBD technology, including treatments for central nervous system disorders and COVID-19.
And the study not only brings hope to pet owners and veterinarians, but also adds a new dimension to the ongoing research in the field of CBD-based treatments. It marks a significant step forward in understanding the therapeutic potential of CBD, especially its liposomol formulation in veterinary medicine. I wonder how that compares in human medicine too.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, exactly. Good question. All right, last story of the day. And that's this one right here. All right, this one is a bit surprising. This one comes to us from CNN Health. It says marijuana users have more heavy metals in their bodies.
Compared to non-users, cannabis users had 27% higher levels of iron in their blood and 21% higher levels in their urine, said lead author Tiffany Sanchez, an assistant professor of environmental health sciences at Columbia University Mailman School of Public Health in New York City. There is no safe level of lead in the body, according to the U.S. Environment Protection Agency.
Marijuana users had also had 22% higher cadmium levels in their blood than non-users and 18% higher levels in their urine. Both cadmium and lead stay in your body for quite a long time. Cadmium is absorbed in the renal system and is filtered out through the kidney. So you're looking at urinary cadmium, that's reflection of total body burden, how much you have taken in over a long period of chronic exposure. Cadmium has linked to kidney disease and lung cancer in people with fetal abnormalities in animals, according to the EPA, which has set specific limits for cadmium in air, water, and food.
I think this highlights the need for more detailed studies on cannabis, particularly the real-world products that people are using, said Dr. Beth Cohen, professor of medicine at the University of California, San Francisco, and co-author of UCSF's program in residency investigation methods and epidemiology. She was not involved in the study. The study published Wednesday in the Journey Environmental Health Perspectives used data between 2005 and 2018 collected by the annual National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, which tracks the health of Americans.
Blood and urine tests of 7,254 people who said they had used cannabis in the last 30 days were examined for levels of heavy metals, which makes the new study unique. Most studies have simply measured metal levels in the cannabis plants and not the people using cannabis. Our study wasn't able to tease apart whether or not self-report were using medical or recreational cannabis, so we can't say indefinitely if medical cannabis users specifically had higher metal levels. This is something that should be evaluated in future studies. Heavy metals bind to cells in the body, limiting their function, according to the Cleveland Clinic. Effects.
Immunocompromised people, such as those going through chemotherapy, may be at a greater risk for metal exposure or from other common cannabis contaminants like molds. However, it is very much an understudied area, Sanchez said. Heavy metals aren't just in cannabis. Tobacco smokers are exposed to even more types of toxins. E-cigarettes, for example, contain high aerosol levels of nickel, cadmium, lead, and zinc, where researchers have found e-liquids and the tanks of e-cigarettes contain arsenic, lead, nickel, tin, manganese, copper, and chromium, according to the studies.
They say cannabis and food supply. Some crop fields and regions, however, contain more toxic levels than others, partly due to the overuse of metal-containing pesticides and ongoing industrial pollution. Now, according to Dr. Leonardo Trezzandi, chief of environmental practices at NYU, says that there was a time where we used metals as the prominent pesticide for many years, assuming it was safe.
Yeah, and not all plants can absorb high levels of contaminants without harm, but cannabis has a special property. It is known as it is a known hyperaccumulator, which means it is extremely good at absorbing heavy metals, pesticides, petroleum solvents, crude oil, and other potentially harmful chemicals without harm to itself. Due to its deep, wide roots and ability to grow in poor soil, the plant can be grown in many environments. In fact, hemp can be successfully used to naturally leach toxic heavy metals from the soil around Chernobyl power plant disaster, and pesticides such as digoxin from heavily contaminated farms in Italy, according to a 2022 review. Wow, that's pretty cool. I had never heard this before.
Yeah, I knew about the Chernobyl. I knew about the Chernobyl end of things. Yeah.
You're frozen here, Al. I don't know if you're speaking or not.
That's a problem, as few states have an oversight in place for legal recreational or medical cannabis.
Okay. Is there more for that story?
Yeah. A 2022 study examined existing regulations on heavy metals in 31 states and the District of Columbia, where recreational cannabis is legal, and found that 28 had regulations on arsenic, cadmium, lead, and mercury.
However, even in the areas that do regulate, if cannabis is purchased from a bodega or individual, there is no way to know where those plants were grown, Sanchez says. This goes back to the fact that cannabis is still illegal at the federal level, but legal at some state levels. So there's piecemeal regulation on metals and mold and pesticides, she said. Very true.
Yeah. What can a marijuana user do to protect themselves from contaminants? That's still a question without a clear answer, Schultz says. One of the biggest things I tell people when we're talking about heavy metals in food is to have a varied diet. In this case, I'm not sure how you would vary your exposure, but you can at least be aware that there are different environmental contaminants in things that we might not be aware of, such as cannabis.
Very true.
There you go.
Interesting.
There you go. Heavy metal sort of reminds me of that movie.
I love that movie. It was way back when.
Way back when. That's right. Exactly. She was been around for a while. Well, anything you want to say before we say goodbye?
Peace all.
All right. In closing, from the legacy420.com news desk, that's the news for today. We hope you found it educational and informative. Thank you to legacy420.com, the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, and Limestone City Hydroponics.ca, and to you, our viewers. Catch our next Psychedelics and Cannabis News broadcast Monday with myself and Rev Kelly at 10 a.m. We'll see you all then. Bye-bye.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more. We've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.